across country, but this time it ended as a very wet one. But horse and rider were none the worse.
In the lake, first 12. Very neatly through that.
Bold Venture, ridden by Moira Horton, had gone clear until Henry's corner. But like so many, she hit the gate, but they parted company. None the worse, she remounted and completed the course for 100 penalties in all. The lone Irish challenge came from Mark, Barry and Paperchase, combination that's competed at young rider level, attacking their first badminton. And attacking was the word, because they overrode fence 5 and parted company. But despite that, they remounted, survived one nasty moment and then completed the course. Well, David O'Connor and Wilton Fair might have produced their best test in the dressage, but that wasn't to be the case across country. They had problems right from the word go, and eventually they ended their day at the second water. Duncan Douglas is no stranger to badminton, but these days is not as active a competitor as he used to be. And it shows. But he jumped one of the 22 clear rounds, and Mr. Roger Baldwin's Night Rider finished with 34.8 time penalties, despite their odd near miss. Well, Gillian Mabry and Rum Tum Tugger have very wet memories from the last badminton. And Rum Tum Tugger has not forgotten. And the crowd weren't disappointed, because the action went on and on. And this time it was poor Tessa Spencer who took the ducking. Tracy Dillon takes the badminton lake for her first attempt. And luckily it wasn't a wet one, it was only the rails that saved her. And she lives to fight another day. But undoubtedly there were some success stories of Badminton 91, and Montana Blue was certainly one.
Yes, this is a lovely horse. Katie Meacham has had him several years now, brought him through from the beginning, taken him slowly and steadily. He's had a couple of setbacks, mostly health-wise, and she's just never given up. She's known what a cracker of a horse she's got. Look at those ears. This is his feature mark. He was a bit green and a bit sharp down there, but he was always going to get her out of any trouble he got into. Jacana here with Richard Walker. This horse only 9. Makes a lovely job of the S fence. Gave Richard a 3rd placing at Burley last year. And now to the lake. This a very big test for this young 11-year-old. But still the ears are pricked. A little bit shy. Katie's having to say, come on, it's all right. And he trusts her, and look how he looks for the out. He just bends his head round and says, that's where I've got to go, and I'll go. Richard Walker, very accurate rider. Little horse trusts him implicitly. Copy book down there. Montana Blue still going strong, ears still pricked, comes round now to the pond, maximum height fence. Look at that, little neat pop in. This horse really knows his job now. I think probably this is the most exciting combination that came through Badminton 91. Jacana, Richard Walker, the Vicarage V, he lost his line, having just said how totally he trusted Richard. Things went a bit wrong there, and they very nearly lost each other. Richard gives him a reassuring pat. He takes him round now the slower entry into the pond, the 2 smaller fences, to try and regain his confidence. He still nearly stops, hangs his legs as so often horses do when they're dropping into water to slow themselves up. It does have the effect of pushing you right out of the saddle. Richard's had 2 lives now at badminton, and my goodness, he's going for the corner. He's risking a 3rd life, but no. This little horse did trust him implicitly, and now they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and relearn that confidence. That was just one question too many, I feel. But they'll be going again. It won't take too long.
Curtin Hall was second with Sally Emery at Buccleuch. So she'd have every reason to
14 horse
fancy her chances of a good performance at badminton.
have been given.
The Irish bank that's played its part in the past.
Go on, go on! Go on, go! Oh, you silly boy, you were supposed to jump it.
And it's played its part again for Sally Imrie. Gilles Moret and Marcus Sherrard had quite an eventful round before Tom Smith's walls. And despite that nasty-looking fall, horse and rider were none the worse and indeed completed the course.
For France, clear at 16, the Irish bank.
The Brooks family from North Wales have been represented at badminton on several occasions. But poor Rachel Brooks had a painful landing in Huntsman's Close. She was winded quite badly, but remounted, and she too completed the course on Bucklewood.
Slightly longer route into the water of the Vicarage Pond.
Australia has a proud record at badminton with Laurie Morgan and Bill Roycroft, two of the famous names on the Roll of Honour. But Greg Watson has been climbing the international scene on Takanga Fred. Greg, who has the tremendous experience and knowledge of Richard Mead behind him, has been improving rapidly in the last two seasons. This big striding horse competed with distinction in the World Games at Stockholm and certainly looked very confident as they approached halfway.
1, go.
Susanna Macaire too has benefited from her experience in the World Games. That wasn't a success story for her, but she's in with a real chance as she sets out on this cross-country course.
Bucklewood and Rachel Brooks on Mr. and Mrs. Brooks' Bucklewood are at Henry's Corner.
Master Maris, who's had a very consistent badminton record, and Susanna Macaire too, very consistent through juniors and young riders, and starts with considerable confidence. A great long stride of Takanga Fred ate up the ground. Indeed, he was the third fastest time across country all day to incur just 1.6 time penalties.
Over the quarry, 15, so not too far behind. On the left, 3'11".
Susanna Macaire, who holds her line very well down through the staircase, was clear as she came to the lake.
MARS over the Whitbread race, so they go to the...
They've learnt the game as a partnership, and they look very much a happy partnership as they clear the lake with ease. Takanga Fred and Greg Watson complete a tremendous round to put them into 9th place after cross-country. Well, this is the third attempt at badminton for Susanna Macaire and Master Marius, and indeed it's their best to date. They finished 7th overall in 1990, but their performance across country as good as ever to record just 10.8 time penalties and put them very close to the leaders. Anna Herman from Sweden, one of the most popular competitors. She had gone clear until the Vicarage V. But a run out there meant that those 20 penalties put her out of the reckoning. Catherine Gracie and Gentle Sebastian had their problems at the staircase. And a painful fall meant that Catherine and Gentle Sebastian retired. Timberua and Jemima Johnson were in 13th place after the dressage and had their best chance ever. But he's never been the easiest of horses across country, not only a hard puller, but sometimes his enthusiasm in doubt. He actually lost a shoe halfway round the course, which made Jemima's task all the more difficult. They just ended up with the 20 penalties on top of that Luckington bank.
Well, Anna Herman and Mr.
Erica Watson and Seafarer have taken on the badminton challenge before. And as has proved on many occasions in the past, it is experience that counts.
Indeed, so just 3 to go for Mr. Punch.
Certainly looking more competent and confident than they ever have before. They put together their best performance here. The horses that make badminton look easy very often are the horses to go on in the future. Seafarer helps the jockey out, but it is a partnership where you both help each other, and that's what wins competitions. No jumping penalties, 38.2 time penalties mean they finish on just under the 100 on cross-country day. The judge and Vivian Christie are a very promising young combination, but badminton this year for them was asking too much. Charlotte Hollinsworth, on the other hand, with Cool Customer, proved themselves at both Burley and Blenheim last year. So their problems were a little surprising. But the fall in the coffin completed their day at badminton. The crowd in their thousands stayed at the lake all day, and they certainly had their money's worth.
Rails into the lake to take the direct route bouncer.
Fenella Fawkes providing the splash of the day. Undeterred, but home for a hot bath. The lake claimed another victim, Tanya Cleverly and Watkins. But there were some happy stories at badminton too, and one undoubtedly was Lynn Bevan with Horton Point.
This wonderful 13-year-old, probably one of the most experienced horses in the field, taken Ros Bevan through young riders and badminton, and now Lynn, his sister, through young riders and round badminton. It was a superb performance by both of them. She's an international show jumper. She rides extremely well and very fast across country. And yet when it came to the show jumping phase, she did have 2 mistakes. Look at the way he jumps. Forearms right up in the air, making sure he doesn't hit the fence. Listens to her, looks at the fence, sorts it out. Watch him look for the out immediately as ears prick. That's one of the best I've seen through there. And away she goes, very determined. Andrew Harris and Ballycotton. This horse has shown a lot of promise earlier this year, having approached badminton possibly a little too soon last year and had a pretty nasty fall. This year was a very different story. He went with great aplomb and great confidence. Only 10 years old. An exciting prospect for Barcelona next year. Lynn Bevan and Horton Point get a very good line into that extremely imposing fence, make nothing of it. They went on in really good style to record a clear round with only 10 time faults. The horse, although he has age about him, showing nothing but gameness and keenness. Ballycotton emerges up the hill from the lake towards the flight butt, coming up now for halfway around the course. It's a daunting thought when you know what you've just jumped and you know you've still got half the course left. Round the turn to face up to this coffin. Not always easy for the horse to see what lies behind this spruce. The ditch is hidden to his sight. You can see his ears suddenly go forward as he lands, but he's quick to take in what to do. And Ballycotton records only 17.6 time faults and finishes his cross-country day with a total of 78.6.
Number 87.
Well, in second place after dressage, Helen Bell and Troubleshooter had all the pressure on them. Although she's had experience of badminton before, she's never been in such a position in what is regarded as the individual world title. A horse that has a record of being very hard pulling, but completed a very good performance at Burley last year and jumps those early fences as well as anybody.
Troubleshooter Helen Bell approaching the little badminton S. They jumped out.
The new brakes seem to be working. The harder the horse pulls, very often the slower you go across country, but they seem a happy partnership as they come to the lake. A horse and rider that are really enjoying themselves and not hanging about. But Rodney Powell with Mr. and Mrs. Rex Boucher's Timber Hill must start off with as much confidence as anyone. Still the only competitor within the optimum time. That, of course, on the Irishman. Timber Hill, who hasn't competed in a three-day event for some 18 months. So a real test of judgment of both horse and rider. The big imposing Irish horse Troubleshooter makes very light of the course. Very scopy and a real international prospect. The only moment they have in all the cross-country of any doubt was at the second Luckington Lane. But they have the luck, they get away with it. And in the end, complete a very well-judged round for just 8.8 time penalties to finish on 58.6 and within a fence of the leader. Rodney had set off very fast indeed on Timber Hill, and one wondered whether he had the experience of the Irishman to cope with that. But very honestly through the staircase and quickly on his way. Indeed, at the halfway mark, he was still on time for going within the optimum time of 12 minutes 17 seconds. Well, a lot of people were behind Mary Thompson as she set off on King Boris. Overnight leader after dressage, and the horse looked absolutely brimful of confidence as they jumped out of the quarry. It did become clear that Rodney had perhaps set off too fast on Timber Hill as he came within the last mile of this course. Indeed, he had to nurse Timber Hill home to get home with just over 11 time penalties, which was still good enough to have two horses in the top 12 for Rodney. The lake for Mary Thompson. And that's where another dream came to an end. King Boris just bellies the second rail, giving poor Mary no chance at all. Bruce Davidson, double world champion, has always wanted to win badminton, and it was thought that Pirate Lion was his best chance ever. A horse that is classically bred to race, was the individual bronze medal in Stockholm. This was thought to be possibly his year. Rather surprisingly, he opted for the long route at the staircase. And the difficulty with taking that route is that it makes the line out all the more difficult. A little unsettled, and the 20 penalties puts Bruce Davidson's chance out once again. Well, Karen Straker had completed a great round on Get Smart. Could she emulate Rodney Powell and get two horses into the top 12? Despite being the second badminton for Fossway Surprise, he runs out at the Ha-Ha rails for 20 penalties and added time. That was their only problem. They continued on for a very competent round. Indeed, not only a competent round, but a very fast one as well, just to have 6.4 time penalties. Two rounds that keeps Karen Straker very much in the selectors' eyes. Andrew Nicholson and Spinning Rhombus had helped New Zealand to the world title in Stockholm. But they didn't look on top form at all. And with a fall at the coffin, their chances of a badminton win had gone right out the door. It wasn't Anne-Marie Taylor's day. She'd retired on Tombeau early on, and then her second ride, Belmont Bouncer, also took a dislike to the lake, and she finished with 2 horses out of the competition. The lake was thought to be the influential fence, and so it proved to be. And so the day finished as it had started, with another flawless round from Ian Stark on Glen Burnie. Well, 1990 was not Ian Stark's year, but 1991 well could be. 2 great rounds from his greys to put him in strong position for a 3rd Whitbread title. Leading with Murphy himself on 53.8 and with Glen Burnie just outside the time with 4.4 penalties to be in 5th place. Rodney Powell and the Irishman, the only combination to be within the optimum time, and both Irishman and Troubleshooter within 1 fence of the leader. Good rounds from Claire Bowley and Lorna Clark keep them very much in touch. The final phase of show jumping, witnessed by the Princess of Wales together with Prince William and Prince Harry. A capacity crowd watched the famous Whitbread greys bring down the curtain on 31 very happy and successful years of sponsorship by Whitbread here at Badminton. Well, the final phase was a demanding one, 12 fence course, most beautifully dressed with a time allowed of 110 seconds, which was to play quite an important part. And in 7th place was Mark Todd with just an ace, and he really was to put the pressure on the top competitors. Remember, it was all very, very close. Mark Todd, who's not only been such a world-class event rider, but competed in the Olympics very successfully at Grand Prix show jumping. So you really couldn't be in better hands for this phase. There are several difficult distances, and this is one down under the side of the grandstand. You've got 2 options here to go on 6 or 7, and the ones that have taken a stride out have had the rail down off the gate, but not Mark Todd. Coming now into the last third of the course, the speed on this show jumping phase, 400 meters per minute, and that's something that many of the competitors really aren't used to, so it's got to be half an eye on the clock when the scores are so very close. Now, quite a difficult line he comes down to now. A big spread fence here, and now the final treble, and the distance here critical. Being the most influential fence, in the early part of the competition, but a beautifully ridden round means that Justin Ace finished on the score of 67 penalties, and that really puts the pressure on. Well, Lorna Clark was truly delighted with King's Jester's performance across country. She's always been a bit of an expert in the show jumping, but can she get a tune out of this horse, having only sat on it for a very short space of time? Jane Thirlwell, who won a silver medal individually in the European Championship, has given Lorna a lot of help in trying to get used to this mount. And whereas across country in the early part of it they really didn't look together, that isn't the picture now. He's always been a horse that likes to be put on the spot. That's when he's given his best performances, and Lorna can do that. She goes for that extra stride. Richard Jeffries and John Doney have decorated this final phase, and nowadays the final phase is decorated to the standard that we're more used to in the international competitions. And what a great pleasure it is to be seeing that. So Lorna Clark clear as she comes down this final line, rattles that. Now, the last combination. She's on exactly the same score as Mark Todd, but she was quicker across country, so will stay ahead if she's clear, and she is. Two world-class competitors have put the pressure on when it really matters, and that's how you win titles. Claire Bowley. Well, a year ago, she led after the cross-country, only to have disaster in the show jumping. Can history repeat itself, or can Claire keep ahead? He's not an easy horse. She tends to fire him a little, just steady him and then fire him. Very often gets in a bit deep and he can't then get out of it. She just needs to keep him together, keep him in a rhythm. Now this distance could be her test. She really wanted to hold for one here. Or rather, hold for one extra stride. And she fired him. Well, that will put her down. She won't want any more. Well, there's no doubt the horse looked very fit and fresh, perhaps a little too fit and fresh, getting stronger. And that's 5 more. Down she goes again. And this could be difficult for him. He's long striding. And yes, the last one went. It's 15 penalties, so it goes down into 12th place, 80.20. Well, now Helen Bell, troubleshooter, owned by her father, who's been such a great support to her. Helen, who was married 18 months ago. And she too had got herself into a very good position at Burghley last year, only to have a refusal, which put her down into 10th place. So a lot of pressure on Helen, but she's certainly been up to that pressure in the days so far. He's certainly got the scope. She's just got to contain him, because he too has a long stride. She rides that line very well indeed. Two years ago in Punchestown she got run away with, but ever since then there's been a lot of work put into the brakes, and certainly it's worked so far. Remember, she was in third place. If she could go clear, she's within a fence of the two above her. And pressure tells a lot of stories. So that eases the pressure on Rodney Powell and Ian Stark. It's just the 5 penalties. And so Troubleshooter and Helen Bell finish on 63.85. Well, now Rodney Powell, the Irishman. Ken Clausen has been the tremendous support for Rodney Powell in the show jumping in recent years. They've worked very closely. And there'd be no better time to show that to good effect. Ian Stark with 2 horses very close together, rode Glen Burnie out of turn, and Glen Burnie had 1 fence down, but still, of course, in with the chance of the title on the Great Murphy. But this is the man who could put the pressure on. He's had so many disappointments. He could just put himself in a position to take that title. Looking so much more confident, so much more relaxed. And despite being the only combination to go within the time, Irishman looking absolutely bright as a button. So he's into the home straight. Really jumping very well, just the last combination. Rattles the first very hard, it stays, and they all stay. And he is clear. So the Irishman finishes on 56.40. And if Ian Stark has 1 fence down, Rodney Powell will win the title. Well, there's no better consistent performance than these two. 5 times in the money out of 5. Well, he has got a grin all over his face. He has got to sit and watch now, Rodney Powell. And isn't he delighted? And there is Ken Clausen just congratulating him. But there won't be a grin on Ian Stark's face. Now, what will Murph do? Is he tired? Will he get strong? Notice how very quickly Ian turns up, and the reason for that is that, of course, he doesn't get away from him then. He's got a much better chance to keep him anchored. He turns him up short. Well, he looks pretty enthusiastic, and he's giving Ian a tough time of it. What power, what strength. And he really is in charge. Is he in charge too much? Ian has got him back. He too has got the scope, but can it be controlled? Going for 3 titles. And that's it. Stood off too far off one of the smallest fences on the course, and that 5 penalties means that Rodney Powell gets the title. And Ian and Murphy can't afford any more down to drop more places. Just those 5 penalties so far. And 5 it is in second place. Just Murphy's enthusiasm that robs him of the title. But a well-deserved win for Rodney Powell and the Irishman.
I did it!
He did it, and he did it his way, finishing on 56.40. In the end, just over 2 marks ahead of Ian Stark and Murphy himself. Helen Bell right there in contention with Troubleshooter in 3rd. Lorna Clark putting a tremendous performance together with King's Jester on 67. Mark Todd, chance ride yet again in 5th place. And then Ian Stark completing a remarkable record, finishing 6th on Glen Burnie. Well, Her Royal Highness, the Princess of Wales, presents the famous Whitbread Trophy for the last time to Rodney Powell. Frustration, disappointment over many years, but this will be the moment that he cherishes for his life. The badminton champion, 1991, Rodney Powell with the Irishman.